In this Dharma talk, I'd like to talk to you about a little story called Bassui's letter to a dying man. She came for this lovely little book, Zen Flesh, Zen Bones. Let me read it to you, it's only short. And I'll give an explanation. So, Bassui wrote the following letter to one of his disciples who was about to die. He said, "The essence of your mind is not born, so it will never die. It's not an existence which is perishable. It is not an emptiness which is a mere void. It has neither colour nor form. It enjoys no pleasure and it suffers no pains." He said, "I know you are very ill, and like a good Zen student, you are facing the sickness squarely. You may not know exactly who is suffering, but the question yourself, what is the essence of this mind?" He said, "Think only of this. You will need no more. You will covet nothing. Your end, which is endless, is a snowflake dissolving in the pure air." So, let me give you an explanation of what Bassui was talking about in this particular letter to a dying man, a dying monk. Bassui's statement, "The essence of mind is not born, so it will never die," reflects a core teaching in Buddhism about the nature of mind and reality. And by saying the essence of mind, he is pointing to the fundamental, unchanging nature of consciousness, which we could also call our true self, which is beyond the physical body and beyond our individual identity. This essence, often referred to as Buddha nature or true mind, is not subject to birth or death, because it is not bound by the conditions of the physical world or the samsara. So Bassui is encouraging the monk to simply recognise that his true self, the essence of mind, is eternal and unchanging. And unlike the body, which is temporary and subject to decay. So, by realising this, the monk can face death without fear and understand that while his physical form may perish, that his true nature is beyond such limitations. So this teaching is meant to bring peace and clarity in an attempt to help the monk to let go of attachment to the body and to find liberation in the understanding of this is eternal, unborn nature. And when Master Bassui says it's not an existence which is perishable, he's referring to the ultimate reality, which is beyond the limitations of the physical existence in which we live. So, in Zen, this essence is often called the true nature, or even referred to as Buddha nature, and is not subject to the impermanence that characterises this material world in which we live in on a day-to-day basis. So he's guiding the monk to realise that the self that he identifies with, the body, the thoughts and the emotions, that they are transient and that they will eventually perish. But then, however, the true self, which is the essence of all beings, is not subject to form, and therefore it does not come into being, nor does it cease to exist. It is simply beyond the dualities of life and death, the cyclic rotation of the samsara. And by recognising this, then the monk can face death without fear, understanding that while the body may perish, the true self remains untouched, eternal and unchanging. So it's in this teaching, it encourages a direct realisation to this imperishable nature, leading to the liberation from the cycle of birth and death. And then, when Bassui says it's not an emptiness, which is a mere void, he is distinguishing the true self from the common misconception of emptiness, such as some people think of it as a nihilistic nothingness. This is not true. Instead, he suggests that true happiness is a state beyond the grasp of the intellect, where the essence of all things is neither void nor form. So this emptiness is not the absence of everything, but a presence that underlies all phenomena without being defined by them. And then by stating it has neither colour nor form, Bassui is emphasising that this true self is beyond all physical attributes and beyond all sensory perceptions. And it's not something that someone can see or something that someone can touch or even can be conceptualised. So furthermore, when he says it enjoys no pleasure and suffers no pain, he's pointing to a state of pure awareness that is simply unaffected by the fluctuations of our worldly experiences. And it's this self that is beyond the dualities of pleasure and pain. And it exists in a state of equanimity and peace. So in essence, Bassui is guiding the monk to recognise the true self, which is the unchanging, formless reality beyond all transient experiences. And then he gives the instruction to covet nothing. This is a critical piece of Basui's advice. At the moment of death, at the moment of passing, the mind can be particularly susceptible to clinging. Clinging whether to life itself, to loved ones, or even to unfulfilled desires, or even the idea of a peaceful afterlife. In the Buddhist teachings, in the second noble truth, clinging is said to be the root of the cause of suffering, discontentment, dissatisfaction, because it creates a sense of separation between the self and the object of desire, reinforcing the illusion of permanent independent self, the illusion. So by instructing the monk to covet nothing, Bassui is advising him to let go of all attachments, to release all desires and fears. Now, this is not only a preparation for passing, but also a profound teaching for life. To covet nothing means to be free from the grasping mind. The mind that is always seeking something outside itself. To provide satisfaction or maybe even security. So when one covets nothing, one is able to remain in a state of equanimity and being undisturbed by external circumstances, and to be at peace with whatever tends to arise. But in the context of death, this instruction takes on a even deeper significance. To covet nothing at the moment of the passing is to let go of all attachments to the physical body, to our personal identity, and also to the entire narrative of one's life. It is to enter into death with the same openness and acceptance from which one should approach life. Approach life in the understanding that all things are impermanent and that true freedom lies in releasing one's hold on them. And his metaphor of the end being like a snowflake dissolving in the pure air, this metaphor tends to capture the essence of impermanence and non-duality very well. A snowflake, unique and beautiful in its form, it seems to possess an individual existence. Every snowflake is different, so it seems to possess an individual existence. However, when it dissolves in the air, it loses its distinct shape and it merges with the vastness around it. This is a powerful analogy for the dissolution of the self at the time of death. In Buddhist terms, death is not the end, but rather simply a transformation. The notion of a end which is endless reflects the idea that while individual existence may come to a close, the fundamental nature of mind is essence. Its essence does not perish. Just as the snowflake returns to the water from which it was formed, then the individual self dissolves back into the universal mind, the ground of being that is beyond the samsara, beyond birth and death. Now, this particular perspective aligns with the Zen understanding of non-duality, where the distinction between self and other, life and death, is ultimately illusionary. And the end that Bassui refers to is not the cessation of being, but rather the cessation of the illusion of separateness. And the endless that he speaks of is the boundless nature of true mind, which is not confined to the limited perspective of the individual or the individual ego, but for the dying monk, this metaphor offered both comfort and also insight. And it suggested that death is not something to be feared, but rather is an opportunity to return to the true nature of mind. And just as the snowflake is not destroyed, but simply changes form, so does the individual consciousness. And this consciousness that returns to the vast, pure awareness from which it arose. So this dissolution is not a loss, but a return to the true and undifferentiated state of being. So therefore, in this letter that Bassui wrote to the dying monk, he offers profound guidance on how to approach the inevitability of death with clarity and peace. And by focusing on the essence of mind, the dying monk is directed to rest in the pure awareness that transcends all dualities. And then, as he said, by coveting nothing, he is advised to let go of all the attachments. Let go of the attachments, freeing himself from the grasping mind that causes suffering, discontentment, and dissatisfaction in our lives. And then by understanding that his end is like a snowflake, dissolving in the pure air. He is reminded of the ultimate truth of non-duality, that there is no real separation between life and death, self and other, or form and emptiness. So Bassui's teaching in this letter is not only a guide for the dying, but also a profound, as I said, profound lesson for the living. The teacher reminds us to continually return to our essence of mind, to release our attachments, and to recognise the illusory nature of the self. And then in doing so, we can live and die with the same grace and freedom as a snowflake. As a snowflake simply dissolving in the pure air, effortlessly, naturally, and in harmony with the true nature of all things. Thank you for listening.